Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to bring to you today some stories about Portugal and going to look from them from the ocean's point of view, which is Oceano Azul's foundation motto. And as in the foundation, we work in partnerships, and those partnerships are based on science. And if we want to put all the science we have in one sentence, which is clear, everyone understands, and it tells us where we are today, this is it. We know that we are destroying the planet, and we know, and this is very important, we cannot anymore say that we don't know. And we have the science to show us why we have this sentence, right? And all these reports from the United Nations have compiled all the information necessary for decision makers to act. And because we have all this information, it tells us essentially two things. It tells us that, one, we are facing a climate emergency, and two, we are facing also a species extinction crisis. The climate emergency on oceans is a big player out there. The ocean is absorbing more than 90% of the excess heat, is acidifying, and is becoming deoxygenated because of the pollution. And on the biodiversity, we also know that there is very few of the ocean that can still consider to be intact. Actually, 13% of the ocean can be considered to have all the elements in place, which is a number that many times we don't realize exists. More than 2/3 of the ocean is being highly impacted by a multiple number of factors. And so the situation today, where we, for instance, know that the big predators on the ocean are reduced to 10% of what they were before we started industrial fishing out there, tells us that we are heading steadily and clearly towards the apocalypse. And the apocalypse is here, and the apocalypse is where we are going to head if we continue our ways. And this is our good news, because we know, and because we can cancel the apocalypse. And so all our actions are going to try to see how can we do this, and what is the way forward here. And here we also have good news. We have tools to change the situation. We know that marine protected areas work. We know that when we protect these areas in the ocean restores itself. The ocean rebounds. We'll have more fish, we'll have more biomass, we'll have more species, you have intact systems in place, so we can reconstruct nature by itself if we put these tools in place in the right way with the right approaches. And you can see this in the water. This area 20 years ago had no fish in Cabo Pulmo in Mexico. And the local communities decided to protect it. And now it's a magnet for life, and it's a magnet for tourism, and it's a magnet for income. And so these areas work both for nature and for people. We have this target of protecting 30% of the nature by 2030, and I'm going to show you some of the examples of what we are doing here in Portugal. With a partnership with a number of institutions, the regional government of Madeira, the Waite Institute, the Pristine Seas, National Geographic, we have headed to this archipelago, which is a very small archipelago on the west coast of Africa, south of Madeira, near the Canary Islands, which is one of the most remote places on the North Atlantic. And this area has been protected since 1971 by the regional government. It was actually the first protected area in Portugal because of this bird. And this bird, which is an ocean wonder, has allowed these islands to thrive, has allowed the nature to stay intact in these islands. And through science and exploration, and through partnerships again, we brought all this information to decision makers by exploring the nearshore areas through divers that can go and count fish, but also using technology, deep water cameras, pelagic cameras that can actually see what the animals are doing in the ocean and can give you a snapshot of what that ocean looks like. And so through this approach from the coastal areas to the deep sea, from the open ocean, we try to have as much information as possible coming to decision makers through compiling data. And you can then compare these areas with more populated areas in other islands. You can see what are the components, different components of the ecosystem that exists in these islands. And you can find also wonders such as these parrotfish that actually in this case are sex reverse if you want. So the males are not the colorful ones, for an exception, and they are thriving in these areas. And where you have lots of parrotfish, you have control of the algae, and we have control of the algae, you have, again, a healthy system in place. And some of these animals that live long only exist in the Atlantic in places such as these in big numbers. So the groupers here are everywhere, and you don't see these except inside marine reserves these days. Lots of invertebrates also. Explored in many of the islands. They are